Hey there, friend. Welcome to the Having a Mom Moment podcast. I am your host, Shannon Warner. This podcast is all about taking a few moments for yourself and reconnecting to the amazing woman behind the title of mom. You have so many plates spinning at any given time between your kids, your partner, your job, maintaining a household, etc., etc. But where does taking time just for you play into that? Let's spend some time together, you and me, right now. We're rebranding a mom moment to those sacred moments you take to fill your cup first. Let's connect, tune in, and tap into what makes us the incredible women that we are. We'll nurture ourselves first so we can be our best selves for those we pour into on a daily basis. We'll also bask in the beautiful wisdom of other moms to learn about the ways in which they've tapped into alignment in their own motherhood journeys. Come on, mama, it's your time. We're having a mom moment. Hello, my friends. Welcome to this week's episode of the Having a Mom Moment podcast. I am your host, Shannon Warner, and I am so honored you chose to join us here today. If you are listening in real time, it is Thanksgiving week, and I want to take just a moment to thank all of you listeners for tuning in, even if it's only been for one episode. I'm so grateful for you, and to all of my guests who have made this experience so magical. I am so grateful to you as well. Before we jump into this week's episode, I want to make sure that you are aware of the Black Friday offers that I am running. First is my printable affirmation deck for mamas. It contains 52 affirmation cards to help you remember just how amazing you are. I have a special offer just for my podcast listeners. When you use code podcast25, you will save 25% off the price. Also, the Mat Leave Social membership has just been announced. And when you buy 2 months, you get 1 month free. The final Black Friday offer that I have for you is the 1-to-1 maternity leave mentorship. When you enroll or book a discovery call before November 26th, you will receive the affirmation deck for free, 1 month free to the Mat Leave Social membership, and 10% off your price. The price is per month, and if you enroll under the Black Friday special, you lock that price in for the duration of your time in the program. All of those details are in the show notes, so be sure to check it out. This week's guest is Sylvia Hartowicz. She is an East-West psychologist, spiritual life coach, and board-certified art therapist with over 20 years of experience providing therapeutic and transformative services that integrate creativity, spirituality, and psychology. In this episode, Sylvia will share her journey of infertility and how doing the work of ancestral healing and coming into alignment with the baby she so desired led to the pregnancy she had been waiting for. I can't wait for you to listen to this one. Hi, Sylvia. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Hi, Shannon. Great to meet you today. Great to be here.
So happy to have you. Can you get us started by sharing a little bit about yourself, and then we'll dive right into your motherhood journey?
Sure. Well, I live in California, and I'm the mother of 2 young children. One is just turned 4, and the other one's about to turn 7 months. And it was quite a journey getting to motherhood, so I look forward to sharing it. And besides being a mom, I'm an art therapist, a spiritual counselor, a psychologist, and I do a lot of work with, well, currently I'm developing a practice that is around supporting women on their fertility journey. And I also do work around ancestral healing, healing of generational trauma. And in the past, I've worked kind of in community mental health, all over the map, with kids, with families, with adults, psychiatric, all of it. So, yeah, it's been a wild ride, and I'm also an artist, and I love nature. I love people. I love connecting and dropping in with community in different ways. And yeah, happy to be here.
I love all of this. There's so many pieces here that we can dig into. Where do you want to start? Should we start talking about, because I know a big piece of your journey is how your children arrived, right? Do you want to get into that?
Yeah, maybe I can share about that. So I'm 46, and I always wanted to be a mom. You know, it was kind of like something that carried in my heart for a long time. And because of the way life unfolded for me, you know, I didn't really meet the person, my partner, who I have kids with until my kind of late 30s or mid 30s now. Yeah, I guess we just had our 8-year wedding anniversary
Oh,
yesterday. So we've been together like,
congratulations.
yeah, we've been together
Happy
like 11.
anniversary.
Thank you. So we've been together like 11 years. So yeah, so it's kind of in my mid 30s, and we got married pretty quickly. It was like 2.5 years, you know, after we met. We were just talking about this. That's why the numbers are clear in my head. Um, and or yeah, at 3 years, I think, after we met, we got married. But and we wanted to have kids like right away. You know, I was very clear. I was like, listen, I'm in my late 30s. I want to have a baby. Let's do
Yeah.
this. And he was like, okay. And then I had a really, really hard time getting pregnant. And it was shocking for me because I
Mm.
had always had a very regular cycle and just you know, just felt pretty healthy and always like look super young. So people always are like, oh, you know, oh, you have lots of time, you know.
Mm.
And meanwhile, it was like, oh, this is not happening. And why isn't it
Mm.
happening? And so, you know, after like a year of just kind of like nothing really seeming to sync up, I really dived deep into exploring what fertility meant and what I could do to improve my fertility, and went on a very transformative and healing journey, you know,
Mm.
that was helped me to get healthy in my body, work through some emotional pain and stuff that was in the way, I think, and really align also energetically to receive and have a baby. And I did. I conceived naturally. Well, I had two miscarriages along this
Oh,
journey, which were you know, intense
of
experiences, of course.
course.
But I got pregnant naturally all those times, and the you know, the third pregnancy was my daughter, who I
Wow.
gave birth to at 42.
Wow.
And she is, you know, a joy. She's an absolutely amazing little spirit,
Mm-hmm.
and I, you know, have gratitude for her every day. And she's been such a beautiful gift. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and then, you know, I didn't expect to have another child because I thought, well, that was quite a journey, and now I'm, you know, in my 40s,
Mm-hmm.
and I have this career I'm working on and so much that I have happening. And you know, one day Amelia, that's my daughter, she said, I really want to have a baby brother or sister. And I was like, okay, well, we'll see. I don't know how that's going to happen, but, you know, maybe. And I, you know, I really had a long prayer around it and opened up to the possibility. And yeah, no, and I had a second baby. I mean, I just got pregnant really, really easily,
Oh,
and have two little girls now. So my other daughter's name is Violet, and
I love that.
um, yeah, they're just both really, really precious. So um, yeah, so that's kind of the short version of the
Yeah.
long story of the fertility journey. But it was quite a yeah, I feel like it's a huge, huge experience for me. That's, like I said, now has kind of um, pushed me or allowed me to come up with this new direction in my work as a therapist, as a counselor, and to support women on their journey. You know, I
Mm.
think that it's like it can be such a challenging, lonely, heartbreaking time to be, you know, really wanting a child and not knowing how to get there. And I think I really want to empower women to believe that even though you might get that diagnosis of, you know, low AMH or unexplained infertility or whatever it is, you know, or doctors, pretty much if you're 35, they tell you, oh, you're advanced maternal age, you probably
Yeah.
can't get pregnant, right? So you get these messages. It's so easily to just feel like it's not going to happen. I might as well
Yeah.
just let it go.
Yeah.
And you know, and what I found is that that's absolutely not the case. It's totally possible, and you know, you got to just prepare for it and do some things to help prepare your body and your mind and your spirit. So
Mm. This is so special. I'm excited to dive more into this, but I can resonate with while I did not struggle with infertility, I had my second daughter at 35 and I felt like a fossil, you know? It was like, even though my doctor was like, well, I mean, technically we call this advanced maternal age or whatever, like, you're not old, but like everything happening to me within the system made me feel so old. Oh my gosh.
Totally. Like
Yeah.
you're like get extra help and extra support, which is actually great. But
Yeah.
the kind of diagnostic terminology used around it, it's like
Yeah.
advanced maternal age and at-risk pregnancy, and you're like, wait, because
Yeah.
of what? Like, what's the reasoning? Even though
Yeah.
there's nothing, at risk really. I don't know if that's the term they use exactly, but that's the feeling, right? So,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, no, I know. It's really something. So,
I can't imagine then being in your mid to late 30s, over 35 or 35 and older, and then experiencing infertility, what that must be like,
mhm.
and especially to the story that I hear from a lot of women and my own experiences for a long time, you don't want to have a baby. It's not the right time to have a baby. And then you think, oh, this is the most natural thing in the world. Like
Yeah.
now we'll try to have a baby. And then it doesn't happen. And it's like, wait a second. I tried for so long not to, and now I'm trying to have one. And here we are in the situation.
Right.
And I cannot imagine how trying that must be emotionally.
Mhm.
Um, how long was your journey of getting into alignment and then ultimately
Right.
getting pregnant?
Right. Well, I think that I got pregnant. Well, I had my daughter 4 years after, we got married. So we had started
Yeah.
getting, so it was probably 3 years until I got that viable pregnancy. And then I'd had the two miscarriages. Well, God, it's so, in the probably
Yeah.
after like a year and a half or 2 years of trying. So there was
Okay.
maybe 2 years where nothing was really happening, right?
Yeah.
And then there were the miscarriages, and then there was
Yeah.
the pregnancy that took. And the miscarriages were another kind of really big eye-opening and healing and transformative experience for me, because that's another thing that our society does not really talk about or focus on. Like, 1 out of 4 women will have a miscarriage,
Mm-hmm.
or 1 out of 5. I think it depends where you are, but it's quite common. And it's like, I didn't know that. I had no idea. So when I had that first pregnancy, which was something that happened very magically, it was very aligned, it was very beautiful, the conception, how it all happened. And the baby was supposed to be due on my mother's birthday. It felt
Oh,
so magical and so special, and I lost the baby at 12 weeks, not 12 months, 12
yeah.
weeks, right?
Wow.
But it was
Yeah.
very far along. It was right at that moment where you're
Yeah.
supposed to just really be free. And I had already been like, it's good. It's good. I didn't
Yeah.
worry. I felt very good about it. Miscarriage didn't really cross my mind, because I wasn't
Yeah.
educated about how common and how it could happen really that easily. And then the miscarriage process was very hard on
Mm.
my body. And anyway, so the whole experience was really hard. And I was very lucky to have a huge support network at that time, not only
Mm.
of my family, but a group of women friends who I was meeting with very regularly for new moon gatherings, and just like very special group of people. Shout out to all of them. And they really supported me, and we did a
Mm.
ritual and a support kind of circle around it, and it helped so much. And, and I realized at that time something, that when that miscarriage happened, I realized it wasn't my fault in any way, it wasn't
Right.
anybody's fault, because there's so much anger that comes up, right? Like, you're like, I was angry, but I realized that I had nowhere to really direct that anger. It was just
Mm.
something that happened in a way to make sure that I didn't have a pregnancy that was going to maybe end up with a child who had some kind of
Right.
challenges, right? Like, it's
Right.
like the body does what it needs to because something wasn't right.
Right.
And so I really um recognized that. And one of the healing things that came out of it, that I think was like a generational healing piece, was that my mother had a sister. Well, okay, my grandmother had, let's put it that way. My grandmother had a daughter, which was my mom, and then she had a second baby that was stillborn at like 5 months or something like that.
Mm.
And my mother, her whole life, blamed herself for that because my grandmother had like picked her up or something, and
Oh my
somehow she
gosh.
got the message, that it was her fault somehow, even though, maybe my grandmother in her anger said something, who knows, right? Or
Yeah.
gave her some kind of feeling of that. My mother carried that, and when I had the miscarriage and I realized how much it was nothing to do with anybody
Yeah.
outside of myself or me, that it was just something that had to happen, and for some reason this little soul had to go through this process, and I had to
Mm,
go through this process, and sharing that, with my mom, and recognizing, I was like, Mom, I can't believe you held that for so long, that was your fault. You were like 3 or something, she was a little, or maybe even younger. um I felt like my experience gave her permission to let that story go, and it
oh.
was so healing for that. Like, I think she got it because
Mm,
she knew that it was not anybody's fault what happened to me,
right.
right? And so yeah, it's like, anyway, these things happen. They happen
Mm,
for reasons we can't understand sometimes. And I'm also talking about this because next month, October, we're in end of September right now, is Pregnancy Loss Awareness Month.
mm-hmm.
And I'm hoping, as part of like an offering that I want to give, is to um, provide a little ritual or art making session. I'm still creating it in my head, for women to come together. And there's a October 15th is um, Wave of Light, it's called. And it's a
Mm,
time where women who have had pregnancy loss or infant loss can light a candle together at 7 p.m., whatever time zone they're in, to honor, the baby who's passed. And so I want to create some kind of offering around that time, and I'm not sure how that's going to look, but yeah, I mean, I think I think it's such a huge piece of the fertility journey too, right? To then work through those losses and grieve them and let them
mm.
go, and then allow your body again to prepare to allow for another pregnancy to come in when you're ready,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So
Mm.
it's all part of it. Yeah.
That's so beautiful that you're creating this offer surrounding that, and so special, and could be such a healing element. And I like how you touched on, like, you do need to process it and allow yourself, allow your body to work through it so you can then receive the next
Hmm.
pregnancy, right? It's interesting how you talked about your mother's healing, and then think about in your own, epigenetics. If you don't heal from this, like, it will be carried. What is it, like 7 generations that you carry?
Hmm.
Don't quote me on that, but like, you can, your DNA is carrying the experience of like 7 generations. So yeah, the more healing we can
Yeah.
do now, the
I mean, I
better.
think your DNA. So my doctorate was in East-West psychology, and my dissertation topic was on ancestral healing.
Oh,
So
cool.
I it's not, I mean, 7 generations is what we think of, like what we can kind of still tap into and remember, but really we're carrying like ancestral and historical trauma from so far back. I mean, if you think of
Wow.
it in a more spiritual way,
Hmm.
those ancestors that have been forgotten, and that they're still deep within us, their stories, their experiences. I mean, humans, I mean, I just feel like we hold so much. And so yeah, the healing can go back, generate many, many, many generations and forward, right? I think that 7 generation thing is something that comes from um and more indigenous belief system, that's also I think held true in many different traditions. um and I truly believe it. I truly like feel that it's an important thing to um be aware of, and to adjust in whatever way you can, before taking on becoming a parent. you know
Mm,
Not only so there's these natural healing things that might happen along the way, like I was sharing about the miscarriage and my mom's kind of story that she was holding on to for so long, bringing those things to the surface. um I think that's important. uh but I also think it's like, to be a parent and not continue the same patterns or unhealthy patterns that you might have been passed down, right?
yeah.
Like, if we don't have some kind of awareness around it, we can go into autopilot. I mean,
Right.
even with the awareness of it, even with like being someone who's done a lot of work around these things, I see it all the time where I'm doing things that I'm like, wow, why am I, why am I getting so angry right now? Why am I getting
Yeah.
so triggered or whatever it is, in this moment? And, not really being able to, have taking, like, it's not so always easy to break those patterns, even with some
Right.
awareness. It's like, I mean, I guess it is all about like being able to notice it in the moment and then pivot if you can, or
Yeah.
take some space, or find a way to repair differently than maybe, that your parents would have, right? To take ownership, to be able to say, I'm sorry to your kids when you've done something that you feel that you shouldn't have done, maybe, right? So, we're all human, and it's impossible to be the exact perfect parent you want to be all the time, right?
Yeah.
But the more awareness we have, I think the more chance we have of shifting those patterns and creating a more healthy future for our world, to our children, who can, hopefully be better versions of us,
Yeah.
themselves.
I love this so much. I love this topic. It's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. I love how you say, do this work before you have kids, because I've had so many conversations. It's been my experience as well, that a lot of things that happen in motherhood can be very triggering, and you never expect it. You never see it coming. You're like, why am I feeling like this? What just happened where whatever this child just did or said took me from, 0 to 100, and now I'm elevated, and everything that goes along with that. So what's some of the work that you suggest people can do beforehand? Because when you're in it and you begin to notice patterns, you can see and pivot and learn. But sometimes you aren't aware of those things until you're like in it.
Mm-hmm. I would say the one thing that you can do is work on uncovering some of the stories and belief systems that you are carrying, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, yeah, you're right. It's kind of like sometimes you don't see it as much until you're in the situation with a young child who you love, and who's for some reason they're doing something and you're just like, I can't.
Yeah.
Right. But I think that you can still go back and do, you can do life review work where you can look back on beliefs and limiting beliefs and stories that, maybe you're holding from your own experiences. So the more that you can do that kind of exploration, I think the more equipped you are to then already reframe things for yourself and create new beliefs and new ways of being, that then you can carry over into your parenting journey. And I think also, like I was mentioning, like, yeah, going a little deeper, doing the ancestral work, like being able to also see what were some of the ways that family structures, and how family dynamics and family structures existed in previous generations, who was, what were the power dynamics between the parents, how were kids disciplined, how were they honored, how were their gifts supported, all those kind of things. I mean, there's probably a lot of beautiful resilience and gifts that have also been passed on, right? There's ways that you can also get excited about that and be like, I want to continue that on. Look at this like wave of love coming through, for me, for example, I can think of like the creativity that's been passed on through the mother line, from my mother's people. I can look at that and I can say, wow, that's so powerful, and I want to continue that onwards, and I want to continue nourishing that because it's beautiful and it's strong, and it's not just me and it's not just my kids, but it's actually goes further back. And so I know that I have the backing of these ancestors to continue moving that energy forward, and it's flowing already, right? So that's really beautiful. So it's like, it's both. It's not just looking at the traumas and the challenges, but also what are those gifts, that have been there. So, Yeah, and I feel so grateful for having found that work, doing the ancestral piece. It's funny, like as I'm talking to you, I'm realizing how much this piece can be part of the work I'm offering. And it is, but I've been able to really like articulate it, as in like supporting parents or supporting people who want to be parents with this generational
Yeah.
trauma work, or whatever you want to call it, generational on discovery of your story, of your people, and all of that. So so it's exciting to talk about. It's a big passion of mine. Like I mentioned, it was my dissertation topic, really, not around
Yeah.
parenting, but just around,
Yeah.
why is it important to bring the ancestral story to consciousness? That was what I
Mm.
was looking at for many, many
Mm.
years. Writing
Yeah.
a dissertation is like another baby, right? It took me like
Sure.
7 years to be in that doctorate
Wow.
program and complete that
Yeah.
that investigation. So beautiful journey as well. So
It's so fascinating. And I love the polarity of, there's some stuff that we're maybe bringing forward that may no longer be serving us because it came
mhm.
from another time and maybe it worked for them then, but it doesn't mean that it works now. And then, but the other side too, the gifts of it. I love that so much. I'm definitely going to be really thinking about those pieces after this conversation. So thank you for that awareness. That's going to be an interesting journal prompt for me to work
Mhm.
through. I love that
Mhm.
though with what you're offering or planning to offer, is it for people who are trying to conceive and having difficulty, or what's your
Yeah.
focus there?
The program that I'm currently developing, so I'm meeting with women one-on-one, and I'm developing a group program that's really about helping women who are having a challenging time getting pregnant
Mm-hmm.
come into alignment in their mind, body, and spirit,
Mm-hmm.
so that they can have that baby, and I think that this is a journey that has so many different levels, right? Because it's like we're talking about right now. There's like the emotional blocks that might be in the way, the energetic blocks that might be in the way, that have roots in ancestral work. This might be part of
Yeah.
it, right? And I don't think a lot of people realize that it's not just about taking the next supplement that might help. I get a lot of
Yeah.
like people inquiring about my work, and they say, "Oh, so what do you think is something that I'm taking these three things? What else do you think I should do?" And I'm like, well, like not that, yeah, those things are important, of course, getting your body prepped and having alignment with your body and being strong and eating the right food and being healthy and getting exercise and being outside, getting your vitamin D, all of that is such a big part of it. It's huge, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And also, I had a friend when I was first just trying to get pregnant. She said to me, I was really upset because it would have been like another month and I hadn't gotten pregnant. And
Right.
I was like in this bad mood about it. And I was sulking. And she said, you're never going to get pregnant if you're not going to be happy. And I remember being so triggered. Like I was so like, oh, what an
Mm.
annoying thing to say. Like, I'm obviously like, I'm sad, and it's totally normal for me to feel sad, which is also true, right? Valid,
Yeah.
that I was feeling all those feelings. So it's not about not feeling your feelings. Um, but I think she had like there was something in there that I think was helpful. And I look back at it now that it rings true, in that I needed to find a way to let go and surrender and find some peace and not be so wound up in it, right? Because
Mm.
the feeling the despair and the sadness and not allowing just things to be as they are was not serving me, wasn't
Right.
helping me be open to really receive and be um just in a good place with what is, and to be in the moment
Mm.
and to be in the now, right? To be right here right now, everything's okay, and yes, I still want a baby, and then right now that's not what's happening, and for some reason, and that means that maybe there's still something else I need to shift
Mm.
in myself, and or maybe it's not even about me and it's a bigger story that I can't see. And so I want to support women through that process, because I think that I really have a lot of clarity around what can be helpful And I think the journey is very much like a roller coaster, and people
Yeah.
need support, people
Yeah.
need support around it.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah. And this is such a different approach because usually what you hear is, try these things, talk to your doctor. How are you eating? Are you doing this? What's your stress level? Not this is from the outside looking in. Again, this has not been my experience. And I'm not going to claim that it is, but from what I'm seeing,
yeah.
around me, that's a lot of what it is instead of doing this inner work. It's such an interesting approach. And I love that you keep coming back to alignment because that was literally my word of the year for this year. I had never picked a word of the year before, but for this year, I was like alignment. It's alignment that I'm, striving for and everything that I do. And I didn't really know what that looked like or felt like, I think, until, in the last really year. So how does one know that they're coming into alignment, or what does it look like for someone to come into alignment in this process?
Well, I think when you're in alignment, things are flowing,
Mm-hmm.
and the intuition for what you need to be doing next is heightened. It's
Yeah.
like you get these downloads and these nudges and these feelings like, oh, this would be a really helpful next step for me. You get inspired, you get moved into inspired action, right? You
Yeah.
start to take steps that you're like, maybe that are maybe outside of what you would normally do, right?
Yeah.
And you follow that intuition. You have synchronicities that show up, right? So
Yeah.
maybe you start thinking, gosh, I really feel like I need to, do more spiritual work. And the next thing you know, you meet a psychic, and they want to give you a free session or whatever. I don't know,
Yeah.
so there's like things can happen. Like I felt like there were so many ways that the universe gave me, kind of signs and guidance along the way, and wouldn't let me really give up. I was very, very clear that I was going to have a baby. And I
Mm-hmm.
knew in my heart of hearts that it was just that I was meant to be a mother. I was going to, find my way there. And I didn't want to do IVF.
Yeah.
It wasn't like off the table completely, but I was just like, I really feel like this can happen naturally. I really believe in it. I trust in my body. I know that I've had these very regular cycles my whole life. I don't know. I just felt like it could happen. And I always came back to that,
Mm-hmm.
and at one point I created like a very powerful mantra for myself. And it was like, oh, it was more like it was like a whole little paragraph of, empowerment. Then every time my mind started like questioning and having anxiety and doubting, I would like read this, and it would like help me be like, oh yes, I believe in it. I know I'm doing everything I need to get my body and my mind and my spirit aligned. And I'm trusting that I will get there. And it happened, and I
Mm-hmm.
really like fully feel that I manifested this, ability or like allowing of this baby to come to me, and one of the things that was unexpected for me was that there was a connection that I made to the baby spirit, and that
Mm.
was something that, I didn't think that much about. And um but it really was, in some ways, I feel like the final piece that really brought everything into, I don't know, I keep using the word alignment, but it keeps showing up now. But like it made it kind of allowed for the space for this to happen.
Oh.
Um, so yeah, that's that was that was a long answer to that question.
Oh, so
I was like,
magical though. I love it.
so,
And I'm glad you're saying this. I just talked to Fran Medina the other day. Um, and she's older and she was trying to have children in the 80s. And she was struggling as well and had infertility struggles and did IVF, even though it was a newer thing. Anyway, what's similar about your approaches was that she had this vision and she like was holding fast to this vision. And she thinks because she was so true to the vision that she had for herself that she was able to manifest her children as well. And I love that so much. Like she ended up, she had an ectopic pregnancy and then had to have like a repair surgery. So she did have some obstacles to overcome, but she just knew that that was there for her, and she just held fast to that vision, and it came
Mhm.
true for her too. She had her children naturally. And I
Mhm.
love that you're saying that. And I know somebody out there needs to hear it if they're struggling, that like,
Mhm.
if I've got two people who have found me and want to share their journey on the podcast, then there are thousands upon thousands of others that it's worked for as well.
Yes, there's so many people, right, who have had that
Mhm.
success story, and it's completely possible. And it's like I think people get told too quickly to, to try IVF, to that they're maybe have unexplained infertility or whatever the diagnosis is. They're told, and it creates this space in their mind that it's like it's not really possible, and this is the
Mm,
only way, and the chances of it working with IVF are only so slim. And and all that dialogue and all that
mm,
stress in the body and the angst about it, is really not conducive to allowing for
yeah.
this pregnancy to happen.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that there's not cases where people really just are not able to have a baby. And
Of
I
course.
and I know that it's not always a possibility. Of course, sometimes it is more complicated than that.
Right.
But for the most part, I see people, giving up after 3 months of trying, and then they go, it's
Mm,
like, well, once an acupuncturist I worked with while trying to get pregnant told me that, we need a year, at least a year from the Chinese medicine perspective, to even begin trying to have a baby, because you need that
mm,
much time to get all your, you know, and everything into balance in your body, right? So
interesting.
it's like, when people they
Wow.
expect to just have it happen right away, and
Yeah.
maybe they've been on birth control for many, many years, maybe they haven't had the most healthy lifestyle,
Right. Right.
maybe they're burned out by being really driven with their career, whatever it is, right? You have to
Yeah.
rebuild that energy,
Yeah.
able to have this. And people, I think, yeah, it's like, I think they give you that unexplained infertility diagnosis pretty quickly, if
Yeah.
you've
Yeah.
been trying for some amount of time. Though it's just what
Yeah.
is being was given. So yeah, yeah, I think there's a lot of women though who have a different experience. And another thing that happens a lot is people sometimes will decide, okay, I'm not getting pregnant, I'm just going to adopt. They adopt, and then like the adoption's coming through, and next thing you know, they get pregnant.
Yes.
It's like,
Yeah.
why do you think? Well, because they finally said, oh, I'm gonna have this baby. It's coming to me in a
Yeah.
different way. I'm now fulfilled. I'm in that space of my vision coming true, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
happening. I'm happy. I'm excited. And here it is, in
Yeah.
both ways.
And I think in those scenarios too, where you've kind of surrendered to like, okay, there is a baby coming to me, maybe not by the means I expected. And then the universe is like, okay, here you go. You're not resisting anymore. Here it is.
Right.
Yeah. It's so beautiful what can happen in any facet of your life when you surrender, trust, and allow. And that's been a big part of
Exactly.
my own alignment, journey this year. Is just like you said, the things that start to happen and the things that start to like fire it off and connect. And it's like it just wouldn't have happened if I wasn't in this place. So I can easily see how it would translate into a fertility journey.
Hmm.
And protecting your mind and all of that, when you were talking about, what the medical community might be telling you, and assuming that you're broken because that's why you're there, you're broken, there's something wrong with you. And it's like just the way as a mom, I try to protect what my child is absorbing, what I'm saying to her. I want to speak to her in love and kindness. And I really want her just to hear the best and protect her mind. You should do that for yourself. You should, you can heed advice and go, okay, I hear what you're saying. Let me see what else is possible, and not, just take it with a grain of salt. If you have this vision and you're really believing that this is for you, by whatever means, it will come to you. And one of my first interviews was an old childhood friend who had gone through IVF after struggles. And she said, your children are your children. No matter what means they come to you, like they will come to you. And it's just like, just trusting in that journey.
Yeah.
So beautiful.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Just like exactly protecting yourself from the stories that come at you from in different ways, and just staying true to what your intention, your goal is, and being open to how it happens. I was open to IVF. That was kind of the next step. I was like, okay, if I can't do it naturally, I'm giving myself this amount of time, and then I'm gonna pursue this. And I went to an IVF doctor. I already had those conversations, and I would have been happy if that was how the baby came through, right?
Right.
So I think it's following that too. If it's like, well, maybe it's this other way. I have a really good friend who her uterus was able to carry a baby, but her eggs really were not viable anymore. And she had a donor egg. She has two beautiful children with the donor egg and her husband's sperm. And it's perfect. They're a perfect family. And that's, that was her journey, right?
Yeah.
So it's not that natural is the only way. It just was my story. And I do believe that it's more possible for a lot more women than they're usually told. So yeah.
I've got two close stories in my circle of people who, had planned to have children naturally and, had ended up taking a different route. And both of their journeys have the pregnancy and bringing a child into the world, that those journeys have ended so beautifully for both of them. I've seen other ways that things can go. And it's just like, looking back, you're like, of course it happened that way. Like, of course these children are perfect for you. Of course this is the way it had to happen, and it's like, I can only imagine how challenging it is when you're in it, but like just trusting that it's going to work out and it's going to be okay. And if you have a vision for this child, like it will come to you in some way or another. And I think we're on the same wavelength. I think your children are destined for you by whatever means. Whatever child you're meant to have in your family unit is going to find you by whatever means necessary. And it's such a beautiful journey and experience when you can view it from like a soul lens,
Yeah, with my daughter, I had mentioned, like she was the one that had really started asking for, baby brother or baby sister. And, I was at that time, I was like, well, I don't know if that's going to happen. And I was like, I was like open, but I wasn't in the same way I had been about her. I want to have this baby so much. I was just kind of like, well, yeah, if it happens, I'd be happy. And if it didn't happen, I'd be okay with that. I totally in a letting go place. And, and the prayer that I had at the time was like, listen, if my daughter is meant to have a sibling for her highest good, if that's what's meant to be, I am open and ready and let it be, and that's what happened. So, I really trust that it's like, their soul journeys needed to have that dynamic, that sibling dynamic, which is, such a beautiful thing, and also, has its own challenges and all of that. So for their own growth, for their soul's growth. So I get it.
Yeah. The soul journey mentality gives me a lot of peace in all of my life experience. Like I signed up for this, parts of it are going to be messy and parts of it are going to be painful, but it's going to be so beautiful. And we've just got to, grow through what we go through and it's all going to be okay.
Yeah, if you can bring yourself back to that way of thinking that we are these spiritual beings having this human experience, just bring yourself back to that and know that it doesn't really end here. That there's like a consciousness that exists for all time, if you can kind of, well, that's just my belief, right? But if you can kind of sit with that and be in that, it lets all the human struggle and challenge and things that we get so worked up about, it lightens it, right? Because you get that it's all here to teach you, and that you just trust the unfolding, and that life is just this flowing river that has all these different ways that it manifests, and all of it's really beautiful. And we know this, right? The older you get, the more you get that wisdom, because you can look back at your life, at things that were so challenging, it felt like the end of the world or whatever it was. And later you're like, oh, that had to happen so this could happen, and that had to happen so this could happen. And it's all part of my journey and my healing, my healing. I really believe that we're here to heal, ourselves, to heal our family lineage, to heal this planet. We're all like on a journey as like light workers, and some of us don't really know that. But if we can kind of if we get that message somewhere along the way and feel it, then we can step into a life of purpose, and making a difference. And when you're in that space, right, of making a difference and living your purpose, then you are in alignment. As we talk about coming back to alignment, right? And things flow and synchronicities happen and the right people come into your orbit and all of that. But it's like we forget and we need to remember and reconnect with that part of ourselves as much as we can.
Oh, I love this so much. I could talk about all of this all day long. It's so juicy. And that those of us that are in this, space are just like, yes, of course. And I know some people are like, what? What are we talking about right now? But I'm just saying, once you get here, it's so magical. And you just want everyone to have this shared experience of goodness and light. It's so beautiful. I love it so much. I do like to ask all of my guests a few of the same questions. I think it kind of, shares our motherhood experience. So first, what didn't you expect motherhood to either change or shake up in you?
I was thinking, I read that question because you gave it to me earlier to sit with, and I was like, gosh, what has changed? I mean, so much has changed, obviously, right? But what has changed within me? And I think I'm a little bit surprised that, like, I think of like personality and identity as this different parts of us that make up the whole, right? And before I was on this journey to parenthood, to motherhood, I was very much a social butterfly, going out into the world, partying. It's probably why I needed a little time getting my body in alignment, right? I was out there doing a lot, having fun, going to the next adventure, and it's kind of a free spirit who was open to exploring all sorts of things. And now that I'm a mother, and I'm not feeling the urge for that anymore, Like I feel like it's so interesting because my daughter, when she was born, right when we came out of my first daughter, we came out of the like newborn phase, and I was about to start working again and all that. COVID happened, COVID happened. And so everything kind of stopped, and I still actually went to work. So I was working at the time with older adults in assisted living, doing spiritual care and art therapy. And so I was an essential worker, basically. I had to go to work. And so I continued with that. And then I would come home and I was so fine with the fact that we couldn't be social, that we had to be in our little family unit, and that there was nothing that we could do. And, my husband, who's also very social, has struggled with this a lot. Like, I think he really wants to go be out in the world, do the things he used to do, go to music shows, et cetera, stay out late at night. And I'm like, doesn't feel that fulfilling to me. So that's been interesting to see that part just not that activated. I do miss other things. I do miss more time with friends. Like I mentioned, my Newman group, my sisters that I felt so close to, and the community we had, that's not really been happening. And just not having that kind of time with close friends, and not having more time just for myself, I think, to make my own art, to sit around in bed and read a book, like those kind of things I miss a lot more. The time, the introverted time, but the extroverted time, not so much. Maybe I will, but it hasn't been a thing. So I've been surprised by that, I think I've changed. Like, I just don't feel like that's needs as much. Like I've done all that and I'm good with it.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that's an
So
okay place to be instead
yeah.
of being like, oh, I wish I could do the things, but these
Yeah.
kids, yeah, I think that's a
Can
healthy
never go
place to
out
be.
again.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like,
And
okay.
eventually you'll leave them with a sitter and you'll do
Right.
your thing. And
Sure.
yeah. Yeah. My husband and I recently, followed Pearl Jam from Chicago. We saw them for a few
Uh-huh.
shows in Chicago, and then we followed them to Indy, where their Indy concert ultimately ended up getting canceled due to somebody getting sick. But anyway, it was funny to like be in that space of like going to concerts and like having some beverages, because like I barely drink anymore because I'm
Yeah.
just like like having some drinks and like being in the vibe, and then like being away from home and traveling. It was just like such a different experience, and like it was fun, but when it was over I was like, okay, I'll take my life back, please. Like I need to go back. Like I can't, which is funny because the fan base of Pearl Jam is mostly older than I am anyway. I'm like, how are these people hanging? But I think because their kids are like grown, they're like in the high school
Right.
or out of the house. But I totally feel that where you're like, okay, I'm
Yeah.
good. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Right. It's just so it's so different. And yeah, it might again, yeah, change and I'll be back to whatever, but I can't totally imagine, right? Because I'll miss these little kids. I wouldn't want to be
yeah,
away from them for that long. And if I was to be away from them for an extended time, I mean, right now anyway, I'd probably prefer to go to like a meditation retreat, you know,
right. Yep.
which I was doing all of that before too. I had, a very full life where I was doing so many different amazing things. And I guess maybe I needed to make space also for these babies.
Mm.
Um, so that was the piece that got kind of pushed aside.
Okay. If you could give one piece of advice to another mother at any stage, what would it be?
Mhm. Well, I think these are things I'm still working on myself, right? It's like finding that time for yourself, this podcast, right? And mom,
Yeah.
having a mom moment, having a moment to
Yeah.
really nourish your own energy, your own spirit. Like I've been finding that if I can get up before the kids wake up, before anybody wakes up, and I have that time in the morning to just, have a little time to meditate or have a gratitude practice, or sometimes I even am able to make a little bit of art. It is like,
Yeah.
already a good day, right? Like I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
yes. And so having that time, because sometimes then the day gets busy and then you're just like, oh my goodness, all day long I've been taking care of other people and um, it can be overwhelming, I think. And so just trying to find that time in the morning for me has been amazing. And I think that not perfect at it, because sometimes I'm just like, I don't want to get out of bed, and then they're
Yep.
awake and then it's over. But when it happens, I think it's really good. So finding a way, however that looks, to carve out that time to nourish yourself. And I think also the other thing I'm also still working in again, again, I have these really little kids, so I feel like there's a lot
Yeah.
that I'm figuring out.
Yeah.
But is to find time with your partner.
Mm.
I remember, I'm realizing that we need more of that time with each other, and we haven't quite figured it out yet. And it's ends up being our time together is like when we're tired at the end of the day and we end up like watching TV together, or something.
Yeah.
And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's like, where's the connection and the intimacy, if you're not cultivating it, right? And so I
Yeah.
feel like that's a really important piece, to just not let it slide away, and to have that relationship be strong. So that's something I'm still working out. And like you said, maybe it's probably time for a sitter soon. I just
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
still working all of that out. But yeah, those are
Yeah.
the two things I think that seem really
Yeah.
important to me.
No judgment on the sitter. I've never had anyone watch our children that wasn't a family member. So we don't have all these times where we like,
Yeah.
go out. So I
It's
totally get
it's
that.
hard, right?
Yeah.
It's hard
Yeah.
because I mean, for me right now, my 6-month-old is like exclusively breastfeeding. And,
Yeah.
I had a really challenging last couple of months because my father passed away unexpectedly.
I'm so
And
sorry.
I started listening to your episode about grief. It was, my daughter was 3 months old. This horrible thing had happened. trying to navigate that. And then
Yeah.
like, I
Yeah.
feel like it threw so many things off in my life.
Yeah.
And one of them is that I think because of ease and just to make things like flow during that whole experience was that I just had her breastfeeding,
Yeah.
she just is fully attached. She's so attached to me. And like, before that, we were trying to give her a bottle every couple of days to make sure she got used to it. And then I
Right.
just kind of I got thrown out the window. So she's, really, really, yeah, it's a thing that we have to figure out. But I don't know where this came from. This tangent.
Oh, just talking about, how the last couple months have been and how,
Oh, the
you want to,
babysitting, right?
yeah, and you want to make the time for that. But when life gets
Right.
wifey, like it,
Yeah.
it just is,
Yeah.
it just is.
Yeah.
And I'm so sorry to hear about your father. And
Yeah.
it's hard. It's so, so hard. But that resonates about what you said with your daughter, because I feel like that's how I survived. My dad passed. It was about 3 weeks before my daughter was born.
Oh,
And
geez.
and I think that's how I survived, was like just having to sit and just be, but also have something to like keep my attention that wasn't just, I wasn't avoiding the grief, but it was a nice distraction, even though I was exhausted and everything else, but it just forced me to kind of like just be,
Yeah.
so
No, I'm
yeah.
so,
And
yeah, that sounds so hard.
yeah, but I think the timing, again, I mean, it was not a part of my journey that I would choose, but like the
Mhm.
timing, as painful as it was, I think that's how I got through it, because I was ended up being on maternity leave and had the space I needed. And, if my
Mm.
dad had died on a Monday and I'd have to go back to work on a
Oh
Wednesday,
my
like there's no
gosh.
way I wouldn't have survived it, so,
Totally.
um,
Yeah. Both my
yeah.
sister and I, we're still totally in it because this happened in early June, and and it was in Europe. So we basically, yeah, I was on maternity leave. She had just left her job, and both of us were able to go to Europe. And like, she's actually still in Europe now, because of the timing of it, that we
Mm,
were able to go and take care of what we needed to take care of and be in the grief with it. And um, yeah, so timing, and also, always, yeah, it's so hard, right? So,
yeah. Yeah.
um, and yeah, and I feel the same way just about like the kids have been like this gift where like I couldn't just get lost in the grief. I had to take care of them, and I had to take
Yeah.
care of this little baby, and I had this 4-year-old who is just full of life and spunk. And
Yeah.
so it
Yeah.
didn't, you have to be in your life,
Yeah.
have to find a way
Yeah.
to step out of the grief and take care of your family. So
Yeah. I'm again so so sorry. I know how awful it is. I can say it'll be 2 years in December, and looking back now, there have been a lot of gifts in it. So
yeah.
I hope that for you too, you can see, the nuggets. And it's been pretty clear to me the way that he is helping me from the other side. It's been really interesting to watch it
Mm,
unfold. So while I would rather have him here, like he's still showing up for me in a lot of beautiful ways. So
that's
I hope that
beautiful.
for you and your sister too, because it's helped immensely. So
Well, that's beautiful.
side.
And that brings
Yeah.
us back to the ancestral piece,
Mhm.
right? Like, he
Yeah.
is an ancestor for you now. And it's
Yeah.
like sometimes those relationships, yeah, they continue, they not sometimes, they always are still
Yeah.
there, and
Yeah.
you can cultivate them and you can strengthen them and you can have them be a source of,
Yeah.
love and guidance in your life. And yeah, I'm still working that out with this current
Yeah.
space because it's so new, it's raw. But I think that I am happy to hear you say that. I think that's really beautiful. And
Yeah.
just know that it will always be there for you, right? Like,
Yeah.
that relationship, it will
Mm-hmm.
always be there for you, and you can deepen it if you
Yeah.
want, you know
Yeah.
connect with it
Yeah.
as much as you need to. So
Yeah. It's special. It's special to know that piece, that it's different, I've heard, who did I hear? Oh, was watching Project Runway. I don't know if you watch Project Runway, but the winner this season, his name is Bishmi, and his sister had passed right before, and
uh-huh.
he never said she died. He said she transcended. She transcended, and I
Mm,
just love that verbiage so much, because death feels so final, whereas like transcended feels eternal. And
yeah,
it's so beautiful.
so
Yeah.
beautiful. I love
Yeah.
that.
This conversation has been so good. I love all of it so, so much. But where can people find you? How can they work with you? Give us all
Oh,
the
yeah.
details.
Thank you.
Of
Yes.
course.
My practice is called Wisdom Heart Healing, and that's my website, wisdomhearthealing.com. And the fertility program is called Moon Rhythms Fertility Journey Support. So I think that both of those things are gonna, well, the website is what it is, and then the program will continue to have more presence out in the world. So that's the easiest way. You can email me at sylvia@wisdomhearthealing.com. You can also my email is sylvia.hartowicz@gmail.com, my other email. So there's ways to reach me.
Awesome.
I'm on Instagram, and Facebook and all that. So
Yeah, we'll put all that in the show notes so you can follow her, find her, get in touch, because this sounds so good. I'm going to send anybody your way. I mean, I think most of my friends and people in my sphere are done having children, but if I meet anybody who is struggling, I'm going to send them your way, because I think there is so much power in the work that you're doing and so much healing in the work that you're doing.
Thank you so much, Shannon. We
Yeah.
really, really appreciate it. It's been wonderful talking with you today, and I just feel inspired, and just like I feel the energy. So I'm really, really grateful for you for giving the space for mothers to share their stories and their voices, and happy to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure, and I so appreciate all your wisdom today.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Sylvia, for being here and sharing your wisdom and your journey. As I mentioned previously, I do batch record these episodes. So Sylvia and I had this conversation back in September, and I was talking to her recently, and she just rolled out this new offer that I'm really excited to share with you because it sounds so good. It is called Portal to Parenthood. It's a 3-month online program for fully stepping into the journey of creating parenthood. If you know that being a parent is something that you want in your life, but you are finding yourself blocked in some way, this program is for you. You can get all the details via the link in the show notes. Seriously, read through this offer page. There is some really, really juicy stuff in here. If you're interested in more information or to learn more about the program, of course, you can reach out to Sylvia. Her information is in the notes as well, but she is offering a mini intro workshop to the Portal to Parenthood on Saturday, December 9th. It's an online event and it's completely free. That information is in the notes as well. Be sure to check it out. In addition to the Black Friday offers I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, the free 18-page maternity leave planning guide is available for you. The link is in the show notes, completely free. 18 pages full of tips and tools to help you create an aligned plan that honors your needs in the transition into working motherhood. I'm also rolling out a free How to Fund Your Unpaid Leave webinar. It's a 30-minute crash course on some ways to just help you raise some money to fund any unpaid time that you may experience on your maternity leave. Check out my Instagram for more details on that offer when it becomes available. Until we meet again, come hang out with me on Instagram at Having a Mom Moment. And if you love what you're hearing on the podcast, it would mean so much if you would subscribe and leave a review and share it with anyone in your life who you think may also appreciate all the goodness that's happening over here. Lastly, I just want to remind you that you are amazing, you are loved, and if no one else has told you today, I am so proud of you, Mama.